Welcome back to the morning show here on the Rise News. I am Adesoa Omoroan.
I'm Rufai Hussaini.
And I'm Shaiton Atigari. Good morning.
Well, earlier in the week, suspected Boko Haram militants killed at least 30 people and abducted women and children in the raid in northeastern Nigeria.
Most of the victims were travelers who were burnt to death while sleeping in their vehicles during an overnight stop. The attack took place in Auno town on a major highway in Borno State. Militant Islamic group Boko Haram and its offshoots have waged a brutal insurgency in Nigeria since 2009. About 35,000 people have been killed, with more than 2 million being left homeless, and hundreds have been abducted in this conflict.
Very sad outlook there. Joining us now is Terrence Kuanum, a security expert and field researcher with Global Amnesty Watch and its National Human Rights Monitoring Organization based in Geneva. Goodness me. As a field researcher, Terrence Kuanum have monitored widely the crisis in the northeast and north central in Nigeria. It's a joy talking to you, but that joy is tainted with a lot of sadness this morning that 30 people just lost their life in a very gory situation, burned to death, repulsed to their souls. What's your take on this? Okay, if you can hear me, Terrence, 30 people burned to death.
Yeah, I can hear.
Very sad times for the country. And we pray for the repulse of their souls. What's your take on this?
Yeah, the situation is unfortunate for what happened. But as citizens of this country, we need to take lessons from that and then be able to know exactly how we're going to operate within the theater. You know, we're in a war situation, and now that the war has been limited to Borno State, it means the Borno State is the theater of war at the moment. And there are rules and guidelines that are in the theater that are laid down by the military who have the intel and who have the experience on the field. If we look at Auno, the highway that this thing happened, it is a road that is usually closed by 5 p.m. But passengers and commuters always converge on that road till daybreak. Now, the scenario the insurgents find themselves in at the moment is a situation that they don't find happy because their camps has been dismantled. They don't actually have a base, so they are just roaming the bushes at the moment like bandits. Now, getting at the state actors, they need to get at vulnerable people who they come across. And that is why the security people have emphasized that the rules that they have set in the theater, if you don't follow them, you might fall prey to these people and they might consume you. So it is an unfortunate situation, but citizens must quickly learn from that. Borno is not as safe as they think to be able to go and converge on a highway of about 200 vehicles to stay overnight. It was a very dangerous move. It is unfortunate that we lost our citizens, but Borno should not be taken as safe as we are thinking. Because if we imagine what was in the mind of the commuters that were in the 200 vehicles, their imagination is that Borno is safe at the moment. It is not that safe. It's still a theater of war. Those people have only been disseminated from their camps, but they are operating within the bushes of that terrain. And that is why wherever we go, we must ensure that it is within the rules of the theater, and then security are not so far from where we are, so that we can be able to contain the casualty level, because this is the most dangerous level of insurgency. But when insurgents are disseminated and dismantled, and then they are scattered, the lone wolf attacks that comes with it are more dangerous than when they were in camps, and then the engagement was always in their camps. Now they are everywhere, so they can have access to anybody because they are armed, and then you can be killed. So we should be conscious of how we move within that terrain so that we cannot be experience these kind of things again.
I like the fact that you brought in the people to this, and in an exclusive interview with the Rise News, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, talked about the role of the people as well. In fact, he talked about the state of the Islamist militants, which you have also buttressed. He says they are in a depressed state. But But I want to talk further about the role of the people in all of this, because Lieutenant General Boko Haram alleges that there's a lot of indoctrination that is going on. He says there's a wide number of recruiters, logistics suppliers, and propagandists living with the civilian population, making it difficult for the military to win this war against terrorism. In your own opinion, have you seen enough to say that the people of the Northeast are owning this war?
Yeah, at the moment, if we look at the scenario that was in the Northeast, you actually appreciate the level of impact that has been made. Because we were in a situation where in every 30 minutes, 1 hour, a bomb usually used to go off. Communities were rounded up. They were overrun. People were killed, communities were taken over, and flags were hosted. And then their supply chains of arms, food, and medicals was expressed. Now, all those things have been blocked. They have been disseminated completely. They don't have any territory they are controlling at the moment. And when insurgents get to that level, they are more dangerous than when they were in camps and were holding territories, because they feel every human being they see that is not theirs is their enemy. And actually what they want to get at is the state. And it is when you hit at the citizens that the state will be affected. And we had a situation in late December where we had situations where the military had an engagement with NGOs that were carrying large sums of monies into the bush where it was not relevant. There was suspicion that they were couriering these monies for the military. When this engagement took place in December, we had expected a narrative that would bring heat on the military at the beginning of this year. And I think that is what we are experiencing, because what we are seeing at the moment is that the insurgents are setting a narrative and the citizens are now piling pressure on our military. That will depress their morale, because there is no appreciation, because in the midst of all these reinsurgents we are discussing, 4 roads that were closed for 8 years have been opened for people to have access to them within the limited time given by the military. I think that is positive enough, but nobody is seeing those positive sides of the military. We are only seeing the negative side, which is very bad. And this narrative is being set by these insurgents themselves, and we are following it. It is not going to be good for us as citizens, because we have taken this war to a level where the citizens have a major role to play to be able to push these people away by giving out information, by being conscious of their environment, so that whatever images and intuitions they have, they let the security people know immediately. That is the only way, because now that these people are scattered and are running, the military won't be able to track them until we give information to security agencies that will be able to hunt them down. So the citizens have a very major role to play, and I think the Northeast people, I think they have a sigh of relief, because if we go to places like Adamawa and Yobe, that this thing had extended in time past, and if we look at the normalcy that is taking place in those people, I think it's quite appreciable the level they have gone. Now that it's remaining Borno State, which was the hub and the starting point, I think we all need to put our hands together to end it.
The army, the military has come out to fault the travelers, stating that they were aware of the fact that that road was going to be closed by 5 p.m. However, Borno State's governor, Babagana Zulum, has faulted the army's handling of the situation in Auno and accused the military of abandoning their posts and giving room for insurgency, for the insurgents rather to wreak havoc on Sunday. What do you think about this? Should they be closing by 5 p.m.? If they are aware that these insurgents come around these villages, shouldn't they actually be resuming at those posts by 5 p.m. to protect the interests of the citizens?
Yeah, the road has been there and has always been closed by 5 p.m. It is the norm of the theater. And now there are communities around. The Auno itself is a community. Now, if you don't close the road and go to the borders protecting the communities themselves will be overrun, even if the road is not attacked. So those communities need to be protected at night. That is why the road, which has always been cleared in the daytime till 5 p.m., is always shut down by 5 p.m. Now, the personnel go into the communities to be able to protect the communities so that attacks will not come in the night. So it is a strategy that they have used for years, and it has worked for them. It is unfortunate that this thing happened on a Sunday. But, because of the safety that has been on that road over time, commuters has been parking and sleeping on that road for a while now. I think it is just unfortunate and unlucky it happens to these people. But moving forward, we need to be more careful with the way we operate. I think the confidence level of citizens, by applying that road in that number, shows that they have faith in the safety of Maiduguri at the moment. They should be careful. They should tread more carefully. They shouldn't be that audacious in applying those roads and taking such risks again, because these bandits are in the bushes all over, and the military are chasing after them. But don't allow them run into you, because you fall prey.
All right, Terrence, I'd like to talk about the political outplay of this insurgency battle in the States, and Lieutenant Brutai was also talking about the fact that when the army goes ahead and fishes out people, some people start to complain and rebut all of that. In the States, it looks as though that we've always had running battles with the governor of Borno State and the military. It's been a cat and dog situation. It's either the governor says this is not working, this is working. You remember the super camp issue? The governor coming out berating the military trying to rebut. What is really happening as regards that state and the military and the governor?
I think the governor is being too emotional about issues at the moment. I think the governor, as the chief security officer of that state, and everybody knows the situation that is going on, I think the governor has the capacity to jot down the notes of his observations of activities of the military and be able to discuss with the commander-in-chief at any time, to be able to discuss. Issues of security are not discussed in public domain. And if he keeps on doing that in public with the military, I think it gives, there's a psychological warfare into these things, and it's giving the enemy an upper hand of always attacking and him confronting the military in open space. I think is not quite right. I think he should change his strategy about certain things. In time past, we have discussed the political involvement into this crisis. And the start of this crisis itself was a security situation. That is the aftermath of the 2007 election that brought about the Boko Haram. Now, we became concerned at the point that, is it for every election in this country we bring about a new security dimension? You remember that in 2015 elections, we were able to see the Fulani herders crisis was a new dimension.
Sorry, Terry.
Nowadays, we have agreed totally of the security involvement into this crisis. And then the politicians in Maiduguri themselves, what role have they played to be able to assist the military in this crisis? Because we know that during elections, they have knobbed with these people and were able to bring back some of these boys closer after the military might have chased them far away. So these dimensions are there. But fundamentally, the citizens have a role to play at this stage of this crisis to be able to assist the military to
Okay, Mr. Terrence Kuanum, thank you so much. We'll go on a short break now, but we'll be right back to talk some more. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Morning Show here on the Rise News, and we're still talking with Terrence Kuanum, a security expert and field researcher with Global Amnesty Watch, an international human rights monitoring organization based in Geneva. Now, as a field researcher, Terrence have monitored vividly the crisis in the northeast and north central of Nigeria. Thank you so much for staying with us, Mr. Terrence. We've talked about the role of the people in all of this, but I'd like to bring in the role of the police and other security agencies. It's a point that the Chief of Army Staff also raised in the exclusive interview he had with the Rise News yesterday. How would you rate the role of the police in all of this? And some would say, as long as we have those open and porous borders, especially in the northern part of Nigeria, we would continue to have this problem. And so that brings in the question of the role of the immigration as well. What are we doing with those security agencies? Have we done enough? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, you know, the other security agencies actually are in synergy with the military personnel. But you know, most of this, the police are trained to operate on a flat terrain, not in complex situations like we have here. So they have the role they are playing. Actually, if the military are able to overrun the base, the police are supposed to be the ones to come in and hold the area so that it will not be taken over again. They have the role they are playing at the moment. But you know, the country itself is involved in serious security challenges. If we look at situations within the Middle Belt here, the North Central, it is still a very serious challenge where the Fulani and the farmers have a serious crisis. Even the military have moved into that situation. In December, when the military wanted to close the operation White Stroke, there was an outcry from all governors in the North Central and the FCT minister that they cannot move at the moment. So the police has a minimal role to play. At the same time, they need to police the country, which has become a big challenge. There's a heavy weight on the security personnel entirely in the country. So we need to actually assist them to be able to minimize the pressure that is on them by giving information so that they won't be able to overstretch. They have their roles they are playing. The issue of immigration has actually closing down the borders has actually curtailed the influx of other arms into the country as well. Though it is not satisfactorily yet, but it has minimized to a certain level that we have control at the moment. You know, in time past, when the Boko Haram people were disseminated, they usually ran across the borders to go and re-equip themselves and come back with more sophisticated weapons. But this time, the dissemination has rather pushed them into the country, and that is why we are even seeing these insurgent attacks that are taking place, because they cannot freely run across the borders because they are properly manned at the moment. And going out and coming in is now difficult. It's not as free as they used to have it. So they are within. So if we are able to synergize information with the military, the pockets that are running in the books, within no time, we can be able to phase them out. And I think we'll have a little peace for a moment.
Right, Terrence, I'd like to take you on a point you raised. You talked about all of this starting up in the thick of 2007 after the elections. I mean, that brought Ahmad Sharif in, Borno State.
Yes.
What happened around that time? Is there something we need to know about that time we did not know? So maybe we can dial back to the political consequence and start to solve the issues from there. What happened?
Yeah, we are used to politicians bringing together talks to be able to rig elections in their favor. There were boys that were put together by Ali Modu Sharif. And then after elections, pushing them away always becomes difficult. And they have turned into this situation. I know that when the military came between 2016 and 2017 and hit them so hard, you know, they have to submit their allegiance to ISWA and started killing people in the format of ISWAP by beheading them or kneeling people down to blow their heads. You know, that is the modus operandi of ISWAP. So they now got more equipped more fortified through their allegiance to ISWA. So the politicians always play a role by bringing this boy to be able to rig elections. But after elections, they can't control these people so that they will go back to where they brought them. Now, the society now bears the brunt by receiving the attacks. Innocent people get killed and XYZ. Now, they always look for scapegoats and all that. This 2015 election brought the flood. It is these talks that they were able to bring in and then, you know, moving around with them during campaigns, they know the terrains very well. This 2019 is the same thing. Some of these crises we are seeing around is still these boys that were brought back. Going back is difficult. And you recall that it was immediately after a lot of Supreme Court cases were delivered, then the heat started coming in. So if you look at this scenario, you know that politician has played a major role in bringing these boys closer to the communities that they subsequently ended up attacking because of elections. So if the politicians are monitored properly and intel is used properly and they are brought down, I think these issues too will resolve. There won't be this habit of bringing boys together in the name of elections, because when it's during elections, they feel very free with them. Nobody is a bad person. Even the people that were telling us that this person was good, there was good effort, XYZ, immediately after elections, the chief of army staff, the service chiefs were so bad, they were to go. Because they were no longer good. But a short while ago, they were praising them and saying how good they were, how they have achieved so much. We need to encourage them. But immediately after they won their elections, they needed to go. They were now the scapegoat. So we even urge the security chiefs to be able to use their intel and hack these people down so that they will stop bringing these insurgents back into the community in the name of political talks, so that we will be having these issues again.
At the height of resurgency in our nation, a lot of fingers have been pointed. Now, first off, the National Assembly came out to say that the service chiefs should step down. The North Elders Forum have shown their disappointment in the Buhari administration. However, the latest is the protest that happened at the Amnesty International headquarters yesterday, with Nigerians blaming them of aiding insecurity in Nigeria and thereby destabilizing the country. What are your thoughts on this? How does Amnesty International fit into the resurgency we currently face in our country?
Yeah, Amnesty International in the last few years have developed a trend that is so scary that at every time the insurgents are disseminated, they bring out their quarterly reports. And all the quarterly report does is to blame the military on human rights abuses. Now, at a point, citizens begin to wonder, these military personnel that we have are always rounded up and killed sometimes by these insurgents. These insurgents kill citizens, they overrun communities and kill citizens of this country. But this has never reflected in the report of Amnesty International. And why is it that at every time, it is when these people are disseminated that these reports always come out? And if we follow the thread of Amnesty International report, at a point for consistent 4 years, it was the same report that was being turned around and XYZ. So it became a concern to people who were following this crisis closely. Is it that the military personnel we have fighting these insurgents for us do not have a human right to be protected at all? Or is it only the insurgents that have a right to be protected that Amnesty keeps defending them? And now the link of the Iranian people, you know that they have caused their sponsorship of insecurity in this country came out in the open because of the statements they started making when there were issues between the state actors and the Islamic movement of Nigeria. The Islamic movement of Nigeria themselves constituted themselves almost into a terror group, attacking state actors and citizens of this country in the name of their belief. It became a dangerous trend. Now, when you have a serious situation on ground, and then international actors are taking side and then causing more crisis for you, obviously some citizens might get angry and say they might leave, but what they actually did is a disservice to this country, and I think we didn't need that kind of attitude at the moment from Amnesty International and the Iranian government.
Well, two questions here, because we've talked about sponsors of this war. Despite the border closure, we still see this militants wreaking this havoc with sophisticated weapons. In fact, we took up that question with the Chief of Army Staff, and he said he would rather not delve into that issue because we did bring up the issue of allegations of Turkey sponsoring this militants. And he says it should be discussed at diplomatic level. What's your response to that? And secondly, let me ask the role of technology in all of this. You are a field researcher. You have monitored and, step by step, all the way, almost a decade of this war in the Northeast. What are we doing wrongly in that fight? Are we deploying enough technology to it?
Yeah, it was when the issue of bringing technology and using drones into this fight that came about that the military made a request of $1 billion US so that it should be approved to them so that they will step up the issues of technology and bring in more equipment to be able to dissuade these people at their camps. And then the drones will be able to pick them at wherever they are so that they will be hit nip in the bud. But you know, the issue of politics still came in. People felt that money was too much for the military, and till this moment we are speaking, those monies has not been released. You know, another challenge that our military have is funding. We are a country that has poorly funded our military, even as we are into this crisis. We are the only country at the moment that less than 1% of our budget is budgeted to the defense. It is not right. Just yesterday, when the U.S. engaged the Iranians in a crisis situation, what they were bragging about was their budgets to defense. They know that this budget has been able to secure their country and enemies to be able to protect their citizens and allies enough that they can be able to engage in one. Can we be able to say that of ourselves when $1 billion that was requested to bring technology and be able to nip this crisis in the bud was politicized that to this moment we cannot even see it? Today, as we speak in this country, we have a 10-point-something trillion budget, which is about $30-point-something billion. We don't have 1% of that to our defense. And then all we do as a nation is keep blaming this military personnel at any time there is a hit and on the side of the state. And we don't look at the conditions they are operating in. We don't look at the situation where they need motivation and even
okay, Mr. Terrence, I hate to interrupt your line of thought, but we have to go on a break. We'll be right back because we need to answer the question on who is sponsoring this war. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Man, thanks for joining us. You're still watching The Morning Show here on the Rise News, and we're talking about the security situation in the northeastern part of Nigeria. Terrence Kuanum is a security expert, and he's with us from our Abuja studios. Thank you so much for staying with us, Mr. Terrence. You want to continue that line of thought before the break and as well answer the second part of my question, which is the sponsors of this war. What are we doing? What do we know?
Yeah, like I was telling you, in 2017, when Boko Haram were not able to contain the force of our military, they paid allegiance to ISWAP, Islamic Movement of West Africa. Now, when they paid allegiance, they changed their modus operandi to the modus operandi of ISWAP. That is, they behead people through videos, they kneel people down, they blow their heads. And by that allegiance, they were able to get funding, they were able to be equipped properly to be able to confront this war with more sophisticated weapons. That is one. Now, sometime last year, there was an allegation by Safe Humanity Advocacy Center, which is an international organization, that saw the link between the French government and these insurgents. Because if we look at the border area of Borno State and Yobe State, they border Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. Now, at any time these guys were disseminated, they move into this country. And in all French colonies, you realize that they have their personnel 150, 200 in those countries. At no point had these guys run into these countries that any of them was arrested. Now, they come back more equipped, they come back more audacious. It became a source of worry, and I think the center made a research and brought up that allegation. We hope the intel will be looked into properly, and if it has been established, I think the Nigerian government will be able to do something about it. We have seen counterinsurgency seminars that have taken place in France that even our leaders here have attended. We want to link that intel with what they have been able to put together to see how, if it is possible, then a diplomatic engagement will be ensued so that those things can be curtailed. And now, the lukewarm attitude sometimes of politicians within the terrains these things are happening also is a boost to this crisis. Because if actually they are able to enlighten their constituents, to be able to inform the military, do you know, because we have situations where intels are rather given to insurgents than our military personnel, where most cases there are ambushes and we lost personnel because the people are scared that the insurgents will kill them. They give out intels and that it affects our personnel. So the role of the citizens and the role of politicians is involved. But in December, Mexico, on 3 occasions last year, large sums of monies were caught with their personnel in the bush. And now the military had serious issues with them that, you know, that at the point their office was closed, I think there were talks within the ministry and the government to be even able to allow them operate in those. So there are war entrepreneurs who have gone through the NGOs, and then there are terrorist groups that have boldly come out that they are sponsoring. So there are so many links to this sponsorship.
Okay.
We hope our business work on all these intels so that we can be able to arrive at something specific.
I'm just going to interrogate some line you've put forward there. You talked about France. But Terrence, don't forget that France, after the first big hit in 2015, France was the country that called Nigeria and sub-Saharan African countries to the table to discuss insecurity. And they made a great attempt.
Yes.
Let's not forget that Mali too was hit across the West African coast, and France had to send in their Dassault Raphael fighters to dislodge the terrorists out of Mali and some other parts. They did that in about 6 weeks. So I'm trying to understand the similarities. No, just a minute. I'm trying to understand the similarities. Now, France that made that call and France you are mentioning now. And secondly, if there are even things like this happening, where does intelligence come in? Because intelligence should be able to flush out these, and we have evidences, and we put it forward in the international community. If we have these evidences, why can't we report to the UN Security Council? Because we have intelligence.
That has been done. That is why I told you that a center made a research and brought out an intel. I'm aware that the center have engaged the U.S. Embassy. I'm aware that the center have engaged the EU. I'm aware the center have engaged the stakeholders. Now, the intel, as I'm speaking with you, is with our military personnel. That was why I say that. When you put all these intels together, the military should be able with the government to spark a diplomatic engagement with France so that they can be able to clear this in the air or nip it in the bud or put it to a rest. Because at the moment, even if we look at the report the center brought out properly, even the conference they are talking about in France was even because our military made a lot of inroads and they caught that conference. Now, when Boko Haram now makes inroads into our territories to affect our citizens, they keep mum. There is no conference that is called. There is no engagement that is done. So, if we look at the report properly as intels, and then with somebody who have experiences with certain activities in this crisis, I think it is something to look into. Because we know, if we look at the Francophone countries properly, each of them have a minimum of 150 French personnel operating within. Now, how can insurgents run in their numbers in a neighboring country and get into that country, none is arrested, none is killed, and they come back with more sophisticated weapons, they come back more audacious? It's a source of concern.
Now, according to the Nigerian Chief of Army Staff, he has actually spoken about the low numbers that we have in the Nigerian police force, as well as the Nigerian military. Now, because of the insecurity in Nigeria, we're seeing regional community policing outfits start to spring up, like the likes of Amotekun. Now, the Shege Kafasa is also making the rounds. Do you think that this template is enough to help battle insurgency in the north?
Yeah, the issue of policing in this country is a source of worry to concerned citizens and stakeholders in this country. You and I know that the Police Act we are operating today is a pre-colonial act, the 1943 Act of Policing, with just some nominal adjustment that are editorial. So it is not a proper policing to manage a state. And then when you look at our Constitution has given the right to state to own police, to be able to enforce their laws. This state has not been defined to be federal, state, or local. So I think within the laws that we have, the state who has the capacity to own a police, equip them, because they make laws, and we expect they should have police to enforce those laws. So the issue of forming state police, regional police, they are not strange. If they fall within the law, our Constitution has accepted it, that they should own police to enforce their laws. So I think it is political for us to be, and even timid for us to be operating a federal police at this time and using the 1943 Act of the Nigerian Police. We need a more reformed police force where states who have the capacity to operate police, they can operate police. Those that don't have will inform the federal government so that they can be able to assist them police their states. But states need policing, and community policing is a very fundamental key of policing everywhere around the world. Because if we clearly define the concept of cop, which is a constable on patrol. Police are supposed to be even policing people, even on streets and communities. So it is supposed to be there long ago. I think there are things that we have ignored within the society ourselves that have come to meet us, and that is why we are being political and being sounding naive about them. They are supposed to be there. The law provides for them. So anybody that follows the law and have the capacity to be able to sustain the creations of this police should go ahead and, because the pressure of policing the country is already on the military. As we are discussing here, we have the military all over the country when they are supposed to be protecting our border. So I think it's a welcome development, but everybody having this concept should be able to liaise with the federal government and the police so that this follows within the law and proper training should be done and equipment should be given so that our people can be safe and be able to go home to their beds, sleep with two eyes closed.
Indeed, that's the prayer of everyone. But there was something you said earlier I'd like you to talk about again. Really, you mentioned in passing the morale of the troops. You mentioned funding. You said it is unfair and unjust for anyone to talk about to blame the military when we rarely give them anything to fight this war. But there's another issue here. There has been an increased call for the removal of the service chiefs by the CNC. That we are not seeing a response to. What is your take on that? Because some would say this also has an effect on the morale of the rank and file of the military. Disgruntlement, increased one, and this will ultimately affect how they prosecute this war. Do you share that sentiment? How important is it for us to change the service chiefs? I
think the call for service chiefs to resign at the moment, I think I'll describe that as ignorance. Because is it a service chief that has been able to conquer your territories back to you? It is a service chief that within the last 8 weeks, in fact, as they are saying the service chiefs should resign, 2 more roles has been opened for Nigerians to ply in Borno State. Is it those service chiefs that should resign at the moment? I think what we should be discussing concerning the military in this country is how we can be able to re-equip them, how we can be able to synergize with them, how they can be able to fund properly. Now, if you need a new service chief, is it the same condition that these ones have, that you want them to take over from them? What is the improvement there? Then you need to rejig entirely everything about funding, equipment, and the morale of the military before you discuss the issue of service chief. Everybody have agreed that they have done so well. So why not look at the other areas that are affecting them rather than look at the area that is not an issue? Is this somebody who is doing well that should go, or what you're supposed to put in that will bring the sources to the war that is important? Okay. So these are two different things. But, our people react to what we write on social media more than what is on ground. If we actually see what this military personnel...
Mr. Terrence, I'd like to say a big thank you for coming on, but because I think that last statement you made, the National Assembly will say otherwise concerning everybody thinks that the service chief have done well. The National Assembly will rebut that and say otherwise because they said otherwise. But thanks so much for being here, Mr. Terrence.